Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, Tuesday, December 18th, 2018. Could we have a roll call?
Bill Brown.
Here.
Annie Adams.
Here.
Leonardo Kovas.
Present.
Kara Dudek.
Here.
Cynthia Hoyle.
Present.
Audrey Ishii.
Here.
Susan Jones.
Here.
Jeff Marino.
Here.
Craig Schonkweiler.
Here.
Nancy Westcott.
Here.
Morgan White.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, approval of the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda? Need a motion.
If you're short of those, I got a motion on.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? I forgot.
I move we approve the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Cynthia, seconded by Leo to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Approval of the minutes for the previous meetings. Everybody get a chance to look at that?
We had 2 changes
Okay.
submitted, and I passed out those changes prior to the meeting. If anyone needs another copy, those changes are in red.
I didn't get a copy.
Does that look right? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So
Or as-
moved.
As changed?
I'll second it.
It's moved by Cynthia, seconded by Sue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. 2019 Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting dates. Do you have those, Craig?
Yeah, were they passed out?
Were they? I don't think so. Oh, okay. They were. I didn't see those.
So there, what is it, the third Tuesday of
So,
the month? I think there wasn't any changes because nothing falls on a holiday. So it's always the third Tuesday of the month.
Wow, how odd.
okay. So we just need to have a motion to approve those. Okay.
I move to approve the dates of meetings.
Okay, moved by Sue,
I second.
seconded by Audrey. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, annual report. I guess that's me. So last year, we kind of divided it up into groups to go through minutes and put things into categories. I'm not sure if that works real good. I was thinking maybe this year, if we could just have like a subcommittee of 3, we can have 3 people, right? Maybe to kind of get together and work on the report and then present a draft, get comments. Does that sound okay to people? Any volunteers? Okay. Looks like there's at least 3. Okay. So Sue and Kara. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, and Nancy. Okay, let's make it. Oh, can we do 4? Or
I think you can do whatever you want to do.
no, we have 11 people, right? So the quorum is 6, so we can only do 3.
Is
Okay.
that right?
Yeah. So we'll do 3. And Nancy, you can be an alternate in case one of us can't show up, because only 3 of us can meet at a time because of the Open Meeting Act.
That's right.
Okay.
Bill, I keep a list of all the agenda items for the year, so I'll email those to you.
Okay.
Just in
That sounds
case
good.
you need to refresh yourself with it.
And does anybody have any other ideas about things that should be in the annual report that you want us to consider or anything like that? Now's the time to kind of discuss that if you want to bring anything up.
Bill, could you just, is this something that you do over the course, like
It's
will it be reviewed by the group before it's
Yeah,
submitted?
it's required by our BPAC ordinance that established the commission to provide an annual report. And it's pretty specific about the kinds of things that it wants in the report. So typically we've gone through the minutes and kind of categorized what we discussed or voted on during the year and tried to put them into the different categories that are kind of required by the report. I don't think, anybody's real stickler about everything being in there exactly like that. It'd be nice to have kind of a user-friendly version that has all that information in there, but maybe not quite so rigid. I think that would be fine. And then basically what we do with that, I presented it last year to council sometime in the spring, just for review and questions, and then it goes on file and it goes on the website. And it was a little rough last year. That was my first year. I think I did it kind of two forms. I made a PowerPoint, and then I did the kind of categorized version, and then just stuck them together, and that was the annual report. So it'd be nice to get a little bit more polished version this year. I think a good example is actually the Sustainability Advisory Commission report that they do. They do like a 4 to 6 page report. Scott probably does it. But kind of goes over the main things that they've covered, and well, you know it, Morgan.
Yeah, Scott writes it, presents it to the commission. We make suggested changes and
Yeah.
does the final.
Okay, that's kind of what we'll do, but we'll do it internally to try not to put too much on staff, because staff is
Good
stretched pretty thin, especially Public Works right now.
Appreciate that.
So that's kind of the idea. So submit ideas if you guys have anything special that you want us to kind of focus on, or any good graphics, things like that, about some of the things we've talked about.
Yeah, the only other, the thing from the Sustainability Commission is the report has it's not really a review of what we talked about. It's just
That's true.
sort
It's
of
more,
a metrics
yeah.
checkpoint, so it's kind of a different
It's
style
different.
thing.
It's a little different than that. They do. Scott does more metrics about how much Urbana
Like emissions
energy
and stuff.
savings and waste, recycling, diversion, and stuff like that. So ours wouldn't be as technical, although we could at least, which I didn't do last year, could at least enumerate the number of miles of bicycle paths that were restriped or added, and same thing with pedestrian. I know we have the one on Cunningham. That's only one I'm sure that's new, but yeah, any other metrics like that? Maybe even some of the stuff we talked about at the crash data. Yeah, so we could add some stuff like that. It's pretty open as long as we covered the main points that are required by the ordinance. Okay, public input. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Charlie, did you fill out a card? That's okay.
I don't know, who is that guy?
I think this is joint with Audrey here. Wearing our CCB hats, our Champaign County bike hats, we're starting to look at a revision of the bicycle map. Of course, there are, everybody wants to talk about a digital version, so we'll be looking at that. Again, probably working with Phil Young at Northern Illinois University, as he has the base map that already available. So I think the idea here too is to ask you folks to look at the map and ask what's missing, what we need to put on there. Clearly the MCOR project is one we've been waiting for to put on there. What's missing? Is it too busy? Does it need to cover a wider area of the communities? So this is an early stage of trying to figure out what the next version should look like. The back of the map is an educational piece. And so clearly there's some pieces there that need to be revised. There's some new state laws that have been added, and there are other cleanup things that could be done. If there's a more modern version of one of the panels, something like that you would suggest, you know of, please let us know. We begged and borrowed and asked for permission to use a lot of that material from other bike maps. So one of the other things to do is start collecting up other communities' bike maps or send me links or whatever. So I don't know if Audrey or Leo might have something to add to that.
I would just wonder if we want to have something for car drivers, since we got the, what's it called, the Dutch Reach or whatever it is, into the driving test. So maybe an illustration on that. That's all I can think of right now.
I was going to say something about this, but I can say it under equity and education, future topics. That's why you received a ruler.
I was wondering.
Or I can say it now. But wasn't sure if the future topics is something we're going to mention during the meeting.
I think that's mostly a list to remind us what we already have on our kind of future look. But so we won't really discuss each one of those. So if you want to talk about something, that you should do it now.
Well, one of the things is these maps are wonderful educational tools. I know I did a special project with 6th graders on it. There's a scale on the top left of the map, which if you put your ruler up there, you'll see it conveniently falls that each inch is half a mile. And you can find the school campus. So this was 6th graders, so it was at Urbana Middle School and the high school campus, also the aquatic center. From there you can measure, and this made an excellent project for the kids, measure the distances to places of interest, the swimming pool, the parks, and also the fact that kids can ride the bus if they're more than 1 mile, I believe, from the school. Is that correct, Cynthia? I think it's
a mile
1
or a mile
mile.
and a half unless there is a hazard.
Okay.
And that
So
would be crossing a very busy road or other things. So I'm not quite sure how they work out all of those issues. But yeah, they are able to ride an MTD bus with their pass for a period before and a period after school for free.
Okay. So, and here's a pop quiz for you guys. How far is it from the middle school, say, to University Avenue? With your ruler, you can measure that out and see exactly how far that distance is, and you'll see that probably everyone on the north side of University Avenue is riding the bus, which leads into another topic about equity in education, which is accessibility and exercise. They may be having less opportunity for exercise. They have a very hazardous crossing to make, and so those kids would probably mostly be bused. And then
They will
pretty
all be
much be
bused.
required to sit rigidly through the next 7 hours in the school
Yeah.
and asked why they are not doing that successfully.
For example, King Elementary, they have a crossing guard and a signal at Fairview in Lincoln. And the state still requires them to provide hazard busing for children who live on the east side because it's a hazardous crossing, even though it's not a very long distance. It's easily within a mile to the school, but the state does not allow the school district to make the determination that it's a safe crossing. Meanwhile, the state has reduced the funding for hazardous school bus transportation by more than half.
Well, another item under that, equity in education, is that there is a planning process going on right now. A consulting firm is heading it up to plan the middle school and high school campus land use, which may include more parking. I think they're trying to bring awareness of the importance of mass transportation to preventing further congestion in that area, which is absolutely awful. No one can stand it. There's also very little accommodation for cyclists and pedestrians right now in that area. For example, something like 150 students cross Washington daily at Broadway, and there's no path to the school. They basically can walk down a parking lot to get to the school. Not to mention the hazards of crossing Washington Avenue, where cars believe they have an absolute right to speed down that. So there's a lot of interesting things. Oh, and the group was not even, I went to the one public input meeting they had. There were very few people there. There were only 3 parents, and about 3 community members. But they were not aware of the safe routes to school maps, much less this map. Though I'm sure they will be as they get more into it. At this point, they're still looking at what questions to ask. So I'll be sure and let you know when they schedule another meeting. It looks like the one they had planned for the end of November was canceled or postponed.
Yeah, there was nothing ever announced about it. The Safe Routes to School maps are for K through 8 also, and so the high school students don't get the same level of information on routes. And the grant funding for Safe Routes to School doesn't allow us to use that money working with high school students, which I find frustrating. Yeah, the programming has to be, I mean, I say that to some degree we're allowed to use the funding to educate the community at large. But for example, we could not buy equipment to do programming at the high school. So we have focused on K through 8. And since, lucky for us, the middle school and the high school are on the same campus, so that makes it easy for us to spill some of that over. Like when we do Bike to School Day, our station, we have it there for both when we have funding.
I think this maps really would be useful for the high school kids to look at and see if they're using these routes, if they bike to school or if they're considering bike to school. Do they have any kind of like after school, there's probably no bike club, is there? I mean, they have all kinds of clubs. Do they have a bike to school club or anything like that, or a group? Would they be embarrassed to join something like that? Or?
They would not. I'm actually quite sure they would be delighted to join a bike club that involved doing rides if somebody were to be willing to set that up. I would recommend, however, that it be some younger folks who do that. I look like their mother or their grandmother. And so I think engaging college age or younger adults to work with them on that would be a much. The other thing is I know mountain bike teams are really growing leaps and bounds everywhere. I would love to see our high school have one. And some high schools then also have competing road racing teams. And some of the bike manufacturers provide discounts and assistance for helping those sorts of things to happen. So these are dreams of mine that those things would happen at the high school. And so if anybody's interested, that would be a fantastic thing to do with the high school students, because I think they would really respond
It's
to
a good
that if
idea
the
to
opportunity were
get the
there.
younger people involved. Maybe we could talk to some of the local bike shops that have younger people working and see if there's anybody that really has extra time on their hands or really, would be enthusiastic about doing something like that. Uni high is, yeah. Yeah.
At least one of their new coaches is
Well, I was going to say I can plan to get some maps when we do have another round of maps, touch base with the school system and get maps into the high school.
You guys do a great
Have
job of distributing. I've seen them at like ARC and places like that. Do you know how many you went through last round?
Well, we did 65,000 maps over 3 years.
Wow.
We did 25,000 the first year and then 20,000 each of the next 2. And we printed across 4 years. I think we did 1 year and then skipped a year and then 2 more years.
And
something
how's
like
this
that.
funded?
Huh?
How is it funded?
We pass around a hat to the cities and other government entities and advertisers.
Does the bike league give you a grant or anything?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah. So I will say
I mean,
that one
Illinois.
thing I meant to mention is making sure that new wayfinding matches the map destinations that you have for wayfinding, we should make sure those destinations are on the map as well. So if they're, please keep that in mind and balance it against that. I haven't really put the two together yet.
Yeah, possibly the routing too would somehow inform the map or vice versa.
Question. Do you know when you anticipate publishing it? And do you know how long you would want to keep the next one out? Like this last one was the 2016 version.
Yeah, that's all open for discussion, and again, part of it will depend on what we hear back from NIU, what kind of electronic versions we want to put together, and
Because I was thinking about the dockless bike share. You know, it's a pilot this year. Hopefully, it's permanent, or it's
Oh, yeah.
open. Exactly, and also just the idea of trying to get it with the student, with the high schoolers, like, the scouts. Do they have the ability to buy them for their members through their donor system? I don't know. I don't have a Girl Scout.
we do
but-
take donations. We haven't, the university pays for its copies.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, through the Dean of Students still?
sorry?
Through the Dean of Students office, I believe.
I believe so.
have to double
You
check.
should know better than I do. I
I should know.
sent you the bill, I think.
I think it went straight to the Dean of Students. But then the other thing is the Uni High, I think Nancy, you just mentioned Uni High, they coordinated the Youth Sustainability Summit, and they want to do it again next year, and they want to be more active. So I think we could talk to the couple of leaders from that and reach out about getting some clubs or something coordinated. I'll say it to them and see what they say back.
Yeah, okay, so like I said, we're just in the initial stages of thinking about this and how to go about it, getting information. So please send feedback, and I think many of you know how to find me.
This is on Audrey's topic of the adding additional parking to the Urbana Middle School and High School. I live less than a mile away from that school. I know a lot of families that live in those neighborhoods, and they will not let their children walk to school. They will not let their children bike to school. They feel there are unsafe crossings. They feel getting across Washington is not possible for someone who is between the ages of 8 and 16. Probably 16, you can probably make it. But I think before the school considers adding more parking, I think as a city we should really look seriously at making it safer for people to walk or bike in that area. And I walk and bike in that area frequently, and I agree with their assessments. A lot of the families don't know who to contact or who to talk to. They constantly talk to me about it. We came up with this idea of a family-friendly Farallon, which is a 1 mile from Philo to the Aquatic Center. People are very interested in it. They would love to see it happen. It would just be taking one side of the road and making it into a bike and walkway. And just figuring out the crossings at Anderson, figuring out the crossings at Vine. So people are very interested in this, but they just do not know who to talk to or how to organize it. So I just, please keep me informed. I have a crew of people who are be more than happy to help out. I know teachers who are very interested in making sure their students bike and walk to school. So we just have to make sure that people are informed and know when these things are happening. So, and I personally am not interested in having the most high-risk drivers, our teenagers, on the roads in the mornings while the rest of us are trying to get to and from school. I'm not interested in adding that age group to the road in the mornings in that area and having them park their cars. So I just want to put that out there.
On the map, you'll find problem intersections as we identified them, as Champaign County Bikes identified them, marked in a reddish circle. And if you have other intersections that you know of in particular, I'd be interested in hearing about those, especially ones that would add to connectivity. That's actually, I think, one of the big issues that this city would need to tackle if it wanted to be, say, a platinum level bike friendly community. That connectivity is just not there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Charlie?
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I sort of have a question. The rulers, Did you want them back?
No, that's your,
Okay.
that's your
And,
seasonal
and
gift.
if
That's
anybody
your
doesn't
holiday
want their
present.
ruler, then I would be glad to take them, because I work in a computer lab and we do math all the time.
Yeah, take it. As you can see, and Myers has a great price on rulers.
Okay.
Oh, I thought, oh, I should go to Meyer, and I thought, wait a minute.
Okay, unfinished business, I don't know of any. Does
Oh.
anybody? Oh,
I super spaced when we were updating notes. I had a few notes to update, but I can actually email them to you and we can just update them instead of me fumbling through them. Or do you want me to fumble through them for the previous unapproved?
Oh, the minutes?
immediate minutes, yeah.
no, why don't you email them and we can
That's it, yeah.
reapprove them next week.
Okay, cool.
Does that work?
Okay,
Have
We'd have to
I
approve
can do
them
it
in, they've already been approved, so
They've
now
been
they have to
approved.
be
yeah, unapproved,
unapproved.
yeah.
Okay.
So you'd have to have
How
a
hard would it
motion
be to-
from,
Okay.
they're already approved.
No,
So-
we would just amend them
We
next
can-
time.
we
We
can
would
move to-
amend the approved
We
minutes.
can move to reconsider the
Yeah.
approval of the minutes.
Or-
I've
or
never
amend the
seen it done before, but it's theoretically possible. Could you do it now, Annie, or would you rather?
I can do it now, yeah, it's not too much, it's just a few
Okay.
things.
Let's, is there a motion to reconsider the approval of the minutes?
I move to reconsider the approval of the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Morgan, seconded by Sue. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're reconsidering. Go ahead, Annie.
Thank you, sorry about this. So on line 3, it says, she explained how she walked and biked in her neighborhood. I wanted to make sure that what was important about that to me, about that sentence was, my 9 brothers and sisters and I walked and biked to school, work, and church. So it wasn't just our neighborhood, it was, we biked to a variety of places. So that would, if it's possible, how she and her 9 brothers and sisters biked and walked to school, work, and church.
Annie, could
yeah.
you say what page that was on?
That is page 6.
Thank you.
Sorry. And then on line 8, since people are attracted to people, it would be, if we could change her partner to she co-created a destination activity. Line 22, 22 and 23, I'm not sure what's being said there. She expressed her disappointment that the even indicated that there was not enough money to close the street. Oh, they, I think that's supposed to be a they. She expressed her disappointment that they indicated, which I think is the city. She expressed her disappointment that the city workers indicated that there was not enough money to close the street. So they did not close the street. I think that's what 22, 23 is supposed to say. Line 27, she then explained an art project she created where people painted chairs and left them on the sidewalk. And then line 31, Ms. White asked Ms. Adams to clarify the National Bike Parade Day event. And I know it's all semantics, but, and then the last one was just, well, there's 2. There was a line 25 on page 4. Oh, I'm going backwards. Line 25 on page 4 was traffic circles at Washington. It's actually chicanes and pedestrian bump outs is actually what's going on in that slide. And then she recommended changing the length of signal, this is line 26, changing the length of signal cycles to create a greenway where all traffic moves to slow vehicles. So all traffic moves at like 15 miles an hour. That was all. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any objections to those changes? Okay, so we'll vote on that again. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, thank you. New business. We have transportation semantics. Kevin Garcia.
All right. Good segue into semantics, Annie, with your semantic discussion. So I passed out a couple of items. I think the first one, those of you who have been on BPAC for a few years, probably, I think I passed this out a couple of years back. There's an article about how Seattle, how people in Seattle changed the language that they were using to talk about transportation to really combat sort of a negative situation where, you know, they were talking about a war on cars and things like that. And the neighborhood groups found that when they changed their language, they, you know, they could move forward and actually get important work done, whereas before it was kind of holding them back with the language that they were using. The second item that I passed out is what I guess I'd call it sort of a mini manifesto that I wrote up. And I think like all good manifestos, you have to have some sort of like stencil font in there somewhere. So I included that for everyone's benefit. But really, you know, language is, you know, so as a professional planner, I take language very seriously, and I think the way that we, you know, the way that we speak, the words that we use, it really has an effect on people's understanding and really on the, you know, on conveying a message in the right way. And so I find in transportation, I think that the language that we use is, you know, is also very important. And really, so I'm going to kind of read a little bit from my mini manifesto, because I think that's what you do with manifestos. You have to read them, right? So, oh, and let me pull up the graphic for the folks watching at home. I can't leave them out. Oh, that didn't come through perfectly, but whatever. Okay, so, you know, so I asked this provocative question. So what tribe are you a part of? And I think that the language that we use in transportation is that we really do tend to separate people into these sort of tribes. And it's not even separating them into, you know, there's a temporal element to this as well, because you're not just a pedestrian, you're not just a motorist, you're not just a cyclist, but we tend to, you know, we identify people as these specific things when really we're all just, excuse me, at the end of the day we're all just people and we're just trying to get safely to where we're going. So I think, you know, and these aren't original ideas that I've had. I've noticed other folks and transportation engineers and advocates and such using this type of language where, you know, where we identify we're all people, right? So we're not cyclists, we're people who happen to ride bikes at some point during the day, right? So I think, you know, it really, it opens us up to having, I think, more open conversations with our fellow people, and really with less of the sort of us versus them mentality that comes with sort of identifying people as cyclists or motorists. And I have a little footnote on motorists. I don't know anybody who actually calls themselves a motorist. You just kind of like see that in a newspaper article or in like transportation plans, and, you know, or planners and engineers will use the term motorist. But, you know, when I think of motorist, I think of somebody in, you know, in one of those old-timey cars with, you know, with a big scarf blowing behind them and the goggles, yeah. So, you know, so it's, if we just start talking about, you know, people who are driving, instead of calling them motorists, you know, because you say motorist, well, I'm not a motorist, you know, so that doesn't pertain to me. I also, just on a personal note, you know, I ride my bike to work every day, but I have never considered myself a cyclist. I'm just a guy who happens to ride his bike every day. But I also drive a lot. I also walk a lot. So I think, you know, so I'm just here today sort of sharing these these ideas and sort of to, to suggest that we consider the language that we're using to, to talk about transportation. Because I think at the end of the day, it will allow us to have these better conversations. Yeah, and less, less adversarial talk. I mean, even if nobody in the audience comes to BPAC and identifies as a motorist, just using the term motorist sort of has I don't know, it makes me kind of uncomfortable when I hear it for some reason. So I've got some suggestions in here. In the article from Seattle, they actually went further than just talking about, changing cyclists and motorists and pedestrians and transit riders to, to people who ride bikes, people who drive cars, people who walk, people who ride the bus. They went beyond that, which, of course we can do. But just as a, as a first step, I try and use these phrases, and, so I'm just sort of suggesting, throwing it out there, and yeah, and I'll take any feedback that you might have.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments? Annie?
The one I have the hardest time with is accident, and we're supposed to use the word collision. We're supposed to.
Yeah,
the preferred word collision. I'm just for me. I understand. Yeah, those are I can't get that straight in my head, and that's all I have to say. I mean, I try to say collision. Anyway, for what? Just if you could expound on that.
Well, I mean, that's that's what they used in Seattle. I try and say crash, but I think that's especially one that's pretty hard coded in most of our brains. It's a car accident or a bike accident. Whoops, I had
It's
an
probably
accident.
one of the most important ones to undo too.
Yeah.
Because nothing is really that much of an accident. I mean, if you're using a cell phone and driving, it's just a predictable event. It's not an accident.
Right.
So is
right.
collision? So that's my question: is collision the right word then?
No, crash is the right word.
Crash.
I think crash works better.
Crash is the word that is used by the majority of people.
So the point is that it's not really an accident. Someone was at fault.
That's correct.
Once in a while, it's an accident.
When a deer runs in front of your car, it's an accident.
Yeah.
Unless the deer had it planned.
Yeah.
When you run the stop sign, it's a crash.
It's a crash.
Yeah, according to the state of Illinois statistics, they put out 94% of the accidents are human error.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. I had a issue with the word pedestrian. I don't know why it's not. For example, if someone's running, they call them a runner. And if they're walking, it seems like they'd be a walker. And then where does someone in a wheelchair fit into that? Or, are they a pedestrian? I don't even think that the traffic crash statistics has figured that out, whether to code them as a pedestrian or something else. I despise the word anyway, but it's just an odd thing that it's not called a walker or a walkist or something more inclusive that would include those in a wheelchair.
Yeah, because I'll say a person rolling or a person biking. So I don't know if that's the right term, but it'll be like a person rolling, a person walking, a person running. I don't know.
Is it? Yeah.
The definition of pedestrian in terms of data includes anybody who is moving without being either one on a bicycle or two in a power-assisted vehicle. And that's one of the problems with this is these terms are used in our laws. They are used in our data collection. That is not going to change. They are not going to change these terms because the reason that these terms are there is to make it more convenient to have the conversation. So you use the word pedestrian instead of person walking, or so that we're going to have that issue. And I do consider myself a cyclist, and on occasion a driver, and sometimes a bus rider. And I don't feel like that creates barriers, but I completely agree that we should talk about crashes and that we should talk about, you know, a person driving a car hit someone or a driver hit someone. Whenever they report crashes, I think hit a pedestrian, I would prefer they say, you know, hit a person and describe how they were moving at that point in terms of the media. That's another problem that we've got is not only does the media tend to use this language, but there is, with regularity, and I would say in the majority of the time, the presumption of fault on the part of a pedestrian or a cyclist. And so there's a lot of biases built in a number of different directions that we have to deal with. And I personally, I like active transportation. I am not going to discontinue using that word, that phrase. And so, you know, they can, you know, the Seattle Neighborhood Greenways can do this, but, and I understand your point about trying to make sure that we identify people as being involved. And I think that's a really good suggestion.
And I think there's also a level of, you're saying, you know, you don't really want to be labeled. Right? Instead of having a category and be labeled. But at the same time, you know, when I'm a pedestrian, I want to know that I'm not the only one, that I'm in a group, that I have that connection to other pedestrians, and that the BPAC, the P in there is for pedestrians. And so there's pros and cons to it. But the point about we're really all people, and that's the point.
Yeah.
That's my favorite message right now.
much, yeah.
Just be good people.
Yeah, and I think too that your point about someone who occasionally cycles or who occasionally walks shouldn't be categorized as a cyclist or pedestrian, and it does kind of, you get that stereotypical attitude from people just because you rode your bike once to work and you ran a stop sign. Oh, all cyclists run stop signs. So yeah, that makes sense in a lot of cases to just say the person biking or person walking.
Yeah.
I was also just going to mention, I liked Cynthia's mention of the word hit. Sometimes crash just does not seem appropriate for you tapped something. Whereas saying I hit this or he hit that, I was hit by a car, whatever, that makes a lot more sense. A lot of times it's simply a crash is, it just doesn't have the same connotation as a hit, although I recognize, you know, they're going to lump those all together in the police categories, but for common speaking, hit is much more direct than accident, and yet not so alarmist quite. You
It
know,
does
people
kinda
can
make you
identify
consider-
with hitting something.
And
They
it-
can identify with
With hit,
crashing.
there's like a subject and an object, so it makes you consider the fault. So so with accident, you can get away with not even considering the fault.
Right.
When you say hit, you have to at least consider who hit who.
Oh, well, that's probably
Right.
why it's not a popular term. Because it does have that assumption.
Well,
Yeah.
and another problem that is really big obstacle for us is that the way that data is collected does not account for people using more than one mode. So in the census data, for example, you have to identify which mode you use to get to work. So you have to pick. You can't say, I both biked and took the train or took the bus. You have to pick one mode. So we don't even have the ability at this point to collect the data. It actually represents how people are moving. When we do it locally, you can, if you have the funding, gather more precise data, and we can ask some of those questions, and sometimes we do ask people that, but the census data is the longitudinal data that we are able to use to look at long-term trends, and you know, at this point, it really limits our capacity to truly understand how our transportation system is working. So, yeah, there are a lot of obstacles to our being able to have these kinds of conversations in a way that provides the information everybody needs to make the right decisions.
Annie?
I was going to say, coming over here, I saw multiple cars at multiple intersections running solid reds, like it was crazy. It was like Green and Goodwin, and then it was at Lincoln and Green, and I mean, I was just like, this is insane. But it really, like, my my stress and anger level goes down when I'm like, it's just a person. It's a person driving a car, whether the street has been designed for them to do this or whether they're foolish. Yeah, well, it's just, but it's like, for me, it just makes it like it's a person. So I do find it really helpful to just be like, it's a person, you know.
It's a person who ran a light, not
Yeah.
not drivers. Drivers run
Yeah.
lights.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's helpful to me. And it's helpful when I see cyclists being fools, you know? It's like, oh, look at that person on that bike, riding no-handed, checking their email and listening to music and running a red light, you know? So it's just, it's very, so it is a, so I would just like to say I do find it very helpful to, it helps keep me from, like, putting people into categorizing stuff and just being like, all minivan drivers are the worst, you know, so.
Okay, should we move on to statistics about bike share? Thanks, Kevin. That's good thought-provoking material.
So I didn't grab a whole lot of detailed statistics, but I have been tracking. So when VORide sends us their numbers every month, I've been putting them into a spreadsheet so that we can sort of just easily track the stuff. Obviously, we're only 4 months into it, right? So as it goes on, it's going to get more interesting. And it's December. Yeah, I mean, so December to date, obviously ridership's a bit low. It's probably not going to get too much higher, but, you know, it's cold out. People aren't around
I'm
as
seeing them
much.
out there, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So Morgan and I met with Ben Thomas, who I was planning to invite to BPAC next month. If you all would like to have him, he can give like real detailed information and, you know, and just talk about VORide and all that as well. But we met with him yesterday, right? Was that just yesterday? Yeah. Okay. So we met with him yesterday. And they have a lot of bikes out there still. There's like 90%, like 450 bikes about. They're averaging are still out there in the weather. They have a couple hundred bikes in storage, and that they're repairing and all that stuff. But in circulation, they've got about 450. That's been pretty consistent over the months. So yeah, they launched in September. You can see that there were a lot of riders in September. That orange number on there is the ridership is on the right axis, and the total number of rides is on the left axis. So there were
those
almost
are the orange is unique riders, and the blue is total number of rides.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, correct. So yes, they had almost 8,000 people. Unique riders that first month, and that's gone up. I guess my number for December is wrong, because I know that definitely went up a little bit. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's probably
So-
total. That'll never go down. That's total registered or something, maybe.
I think my spreadsheet probably just didn't auto-calculate it properly,
Oh,
so I'll
okay.
just take a look at it and get that fixed. But yeah, October had tons of riders. November, that's still a really solid ridership.
Yeah, considering our November, it was
Yeah.
kind of snowy
Yeah,
and
it was
cold.
lousy.
And people were gone for a week.
Yeah, yeah. So
So December and January will be low because the students and faculty are gone by and large.
yeah, but I think that's good. That'll give the company time to fix the bikes that need to be fixed and prepare. Which is not really something I thought of before our meeting yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, downtime is good, because they've been very busy. Ben did tell us that Champaign-Urbana is their best performing market.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So gold level. So let's see what else came out of that meeting. And Morgan, feel free to chime in because you were
Do
there
they have
too, so.
miles, the miles?
Yes, yeah. I have that, and I'm sorry I did not bring it. I think for this month it looked really strange. It was like 500. It was like 529 miles, which I think is the wrong number. because that would average like 0.02 of a mile on average for
Here,
average
here,
ride.
I can read the mileage. So for, just looking at October, there were 21,222 miles.
So they're pretty short rides.
1.2 million calories burned. 8.5 million grams of estimated reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. 8.5 million grams. It's not tons.
That's assuming everybody was going to drive 3 blocks instead of ride 3 blocks.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my question about that one.
And then they sent a note to all the users, so I don't know if any of you got the app, but they had surpassed the 150,000 rides.
Yeah.
These don't add up to that, which I'm not sure where that, but they did, they announced that they passed 150,000 rides. And I was just going to say, we got to start looking at next year. It's time.
It's true, yeah.
It works, let's keep doing it.
Yeah, so we'll start those discussions sooner rather than later.
Kevin, in the information that we get from them, is any type of geo data included? Do we know where people are riding?
So, yeah, so they have a bunch of like heat maps and things that they put together that Ben can access through their like internal dashboard, and I'm sure he'd be happy to, to pull out some of that stuff. I'd like to see it like a little, I don't know, I'd like to see it a little better formatted, because, a lot of it's just like, oh, campus, everybody rides on campus, it's just red, right? So, but there's some interesting stuff like one north and one south up on North Lincoln Avenue. There's a distinct, red area.
Can we tell
up
if they're
there.
using the Goodwin bike path or if they're using the sidewalk on Lincoln or
That's a
what?
good question. I think they're using the sidewalk, because I
We
think
need
it
a
came
sign
up.
to show them where to
it came
go.
north and then went west to there, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Motorway money will help.
Yeah, and like Schnucks gets people out to it. I know Ben did say he's heard from riders that they want more bikes in downtown Urbana, which is good. So I said, hey, put some in the parking deck, because that's centrally located and covered, and there's bike parking under there. So he thought that was a good idea. But I'm sure if we had other ideas for areas to put them sort of downtown, he'd be open to that. But they sound very, very happy with the market that they are in.
Audrey?
Are they 50 cents a ride minimum?
Forget. I think that's
Maybe.
right.
50 cents, I think 15
It's 50, yeah, it's 15 minutes for 50 cents. There's a discount for the Illinois email address, which we didn't negotiate, they just gave us. And you can get day passes, month passes, annual passes. So the annual pass is, I think, $100 for the community, and then it's unlimited 2-hour rides.
2 hours. That's long enough to get to St. Joe and back.
Yeah,
If
and
you're a true cyclist.
A true person riding a bicycle.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia, for correcting.
I was gonna add that they also, they want to, they've been very interested in partnering, so if anyone wants to work with them, I know that Ben Thomas has gone to talk to CCB, or he said he was talking to CCB, and so anything that you guys think, oh, VO-Ride could help with, he's come to several classes on campus, and very responsive. Whenever we ask to do something, they do that, as long as they're allowed to.
I have heard from people that they thought that the parking's been more reasonable lately, that people have kind of caught on to where to put the bikes.
Yeah, it sounds like they're doing some sort of gentle, like, reminders and some of the regular communication type stuff they put out. So, not the scolding type
Yeah,
thing,
I
but
saw
just,
something in
hey,
their
just a
holiday,
reminder.
their holiday email had something about how to reminder to park.
Yeah.
I forget what it was, but there was a reminder.
remember to park in a bike rack or parallel to a building.
That was it.
But I told the students, and so I'm trying to get them to tell all the students that if you want them to come back, you have to use the rack because it's a pilot. So feel free to repeat that.
Okay. Yeah, Craig.
Are the bikes like evenly distributed between Champaign and Urbana? Do you know?
I do not know, but I think going back to the heat map memory in my head, it looked like campus and campus town have a lot of stuff. So I guess since campus town is in Champaign, there's probably more in Champaign, but no, I don't know. But that's a good, that's a question we could ask Ben.
Another thing, I think to Leo's point, it would be interesting to see if there are geocoded information that's of places that we do not have facilities that are in, in demand.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, it'd be good to overlay it with the map that we have to see if people are crossing at some of those problem intersections. So this pilot, does it go until July or until September?
Well, so in Urbana, we don't have a pilot. Champaign has a pilot. It's a pilot program in Champaign only. So Urbana, it's on the books. So the code is in place. Champaign's running it as a pilot program, which they can do without needing council approval. But since we're a three entities in the intergovernmental agreement, if for some reason Champaign said, yeah, pilot over, it didn't work, then I think it would not continue. But I guess, I'm not sure what the process is in Champaign to actually codify the program after their pilot. But that's what we'll be talking about as our little group, which will then be a bigger group once we get lawyers involved.
And I think the U of I, the board had to approve something, right? And it's been approved, so it would, or the vendor agreement. Okay.
So there's a intergovernmental agreement between U of I, Urbana, and Champaign.
Right.
It was 1 year from whenever we actually got all the signatures, but then automatically
Automatic
renewals
renewal, yeah.
I think it's each July 1, but we were going to go back and double check.
Well-
And then there's a concession agreement, and we took a while to define what was in the concession agreement, and so that was before we ever had a vendor. And now we just have to get it signed each time, tweak it if we need to, if we choose to.
Okay.
Well, the mayor of Champaign has a VO bike as her cover photo on her Facebook page, so I think it's being viewed with some favor there as well.
And I was looking at the VO's Twitter feed, and they have 100K rides at the end of October. So I don't know if they hit 150,000 rides, but they have 100,000 rides at the end of October. And I'm actually checking their website now, which is probably where I should have gone first. And the other thing I would ideally love would be if, I know other campuses, they actually, the way we've rolled, the way the MTD has been negotiated to be quote-unquote free for University of Illinois students, it would be great if we could find a way to make the VO ride or bike share quote-unquote free for University of Illinois students. I know they're paying for these services, but if there's a way we can figure out a way to roll it into something, so when they come to campus, they know not to bring a bike, and there will be this bike share, available for you. So I'm not sure if that's a thing, but I mean, I know it's a thing on other campuses, but how feasible it is.
Students pay a per semester fee for transit. And they also pay a per semester fee now that goes towards bicycling. But I don't think it's enough to make the service free for students and have the system be viable at this point. So it's an interesting idea.
So the bike fee is already in renewal right now, so I don't think we can look at changing it, but we could put it on the discussion for 3 or 4 years from now when they renew it, when we have to go through the renewal again. You know, the Student Sustainability Committee fee started as $2 and now it's $12. So, I mean, there's it's plausible, but I will say
Yeah.
that the system we set up is not one vendor only, so that would be a real, I mean, those don't mesh. You can't set up a fee that'll pay one vendor, right, and then offer it to as many vendors as want. But I was we were talking about this with Ben Thomas from VO Ride, and I think we could look at, maybe there's some smaller places that could have, if you're like in this particular group and you pay a fee, like, I don't know, different colleges have different fees, that maybe there's some options out there. We just started even thinking about it yesterday.
Kevin, have the Urbana Police Department or the Urbana Public Works Department had any issues that they've had to respond to, like bikes being in the illegal spaces or detention basins or whatever?
Not really. Well, and by not really, I mean no. None that I'm aware of. I have, let's see, there was one bike that was parked in a metered spot on, like, Gregory that our parking enforcement informed me about, so I just called them and they went out and moved it. So there's been one incident. One incident I know of. Yeah, that too.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Yep, thanks.
Next is me. I'm going to talk about potential expansion of snow removal areas.
Somebody removed the snow from my sidewalk both times. I don't know who.
Okay, I just have 2 slides and then some maps and things we can kind of talk about. So just as an introduction, our sidewalk snow removal was enacted in 2011 by ordinance, and it's in the city code. Basically defines 3 districts where there's required removal of snow after a snowfall of 2 inches or more. It's declared at some point by Public Works, usually after they've already plowed, so that you aren't getting snow shoveled put back on the sidewalk that you just shoveled. And it can also be declared if there's ice rather than snow, not 2 inches of ice, but if it's a hazardous ice condition, they can also declare it. So the 3 districts are downtown, University, which is basically just Lincoln Avenue, because the university takes care of so much of their own property, and then South Philo Road. And the one that has the most potential probably to expand, at least in a few areas, is probably the downtown district. So the ordinance requires walks to be cleared within 24 hours after the event's been declared. They have to clear at least 48 inches or the entire width of the walk, whichever is less. If the ice is too hard to remove, they have to cover it with sand or other abrasive material to make it safe to walk on. There are penalties if you don't do it within 24 hours. You get a warning ticket. Supposed to get a warning ticket. Probably somebody would have to complain so that they'd be aware of it. I don't know how proactive they are about going around and checking, but it's considered a public nuisance, so they get a 24-hour, basically 24 hours to correct the condition. So they get an extra 24 hours, and if they still haven't done it, then the city can do it and charge them. And also there's a fine, escalating fine. The first offense is like $25, then $50, then like it goes up in 3 or 4 steps. So on the city website, there's a FAQ, and it's kind of a strange way to navigate to it. It's under permit and license applications, and then sidewalk snow removal. So we might talk to somebody at the city about suggesting maybe someplace. I don't know if there's another way to get to it, but that's the only way I found. So
Google.
yeah, I mean you can Google it, but yeah. maybe under one of the resident categories or something. But that explains basically kind of what I just talked about, I think. But it talks a little bit about where you can put the snow, what happens if you don't. If you're out of town, and you're in one of these districts, most of these districts actually are businesses. So the businesses are places of public convenience. They usually are open at some point anyway. So they'll be there to shovel the snow. And that's actually one of the probably hardest things to do if we expanded it would be to expand it into residential areas, because the main objection would be, what if I'm out of town? What if I'm unable to shovel? So then you do get a lot of objections. Although there's only 3 members of the original council that passed this currently on the council: the mayor, Eric, and Dennis. So I don't know what the current attitude of the council would be. So if you want to bring something to them.
Well, one question I've always had when people raise that issue is that if they're out of town, they still have to have their lawn mowed. Now, I know the time frame is bigger.
It's more predictable, too.
That depends on how much it rains. And so you still have to have your grass mowed. And so it doesn't really, that argument doesn't really carry a lot of weight. I think that it's not that hard to make arrangements to have snow removed, particularly for a sidewalk. Most houses don't have a great expanse of sidewalk that they're dealing with. The other thing is that you see a lot of people clear their driveways and not clear their sidewalks.
Yeah, yeah. So I made a map showing where these yellow dots are MTD bus stops. And then like on the university side, these blue lines are where the U of I already plows. The red is where businesses are required to shovel the sidewalk, or adjacent property owners. So in the downtown area, the city clears all the purple and light purple. I think the light purple is city property, and then the dark purple is just sidewalks that they clear anyway. Do you know why they would do that, Craig?
Looks like they're doing the library.
Yeah, they do the library. I'm not sure
I'm
why
not
they
sure
do
about Main Street.
the north side of Main Street. I guess just because it's downtown, and it's more consistent than rather than to have every other storefront shovel at different times to have the city do it. That's my guess.
They seem to be adjacent to parking lots that the city has.
That could be.
So there is a
okay.
parking lot that's...
You're right.
So so you have a walking path from the parking lot,
Yeah.
maybe. So yeah, the city already covers quite a bit of downtown. And then the South Philo Road district is just South Philo Road, pretty much from Florida, clear down to almost to Monocles, to Myers anyway. So I thought maybe we could just kind of talk about areas you'd like to see expanded. I don't know if I can get rid of this sidebar.
The maps that are currently on the Safe Routes to School Volunteer Snow Removal Program have overlapped the Safe Routes to School routes and the major bus stops. And so those are areas that I think it would be important for us, particularly along those major streets, that it's really dangerous for the kids to be walking in the street.
Most of those are probably residential neighborhoods.
They are. There's streets like Anderson and Race and then Florida. And and you can pull that up. It's online.
I should have overlaid that. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, we're right now in the process actually of developing those maps for Champaign. Jennifer Ivory Tatum, who was in Urbana, is now at the Champaign School District, and there's interest in Champaign and
I
expanding the program there with the school district.
guess I know they do a lot of, or you do a lot of education on safe routes to school, and if we're going to suggest something like that, we'd probably need to get some data about how much of the walks aren't cleared currently, and you know.
That would
So
take a lot
this
of
is
data
actually a good
collection.
time to be talking about this because over
That would be
the over
hard.
the winter we might just try to divide up the work a little bit, and maybe people could
Well, I had
kind of
pictures
focus
from a
on a
few
couple
years
of
ago.
routes and keep some. You know, after heavy snow, if you want to adopt a route and go out and check it to see when it got shoveled, that would be helpful. Cause
And one of the things I would like to add is that even if we expand the area, we still need an encouragement program. You have to develop a culture of that happening, and the State Street neighborhood has done a really good job. They're a great example of where it's expected that people will clear their sidewalks. And that's what we want to create. And I know when we've had the funding to put out the signs and run the ads and run the radio ads, I did see more sidewalks cleared. We haven't had funding for 4 years, two basically, that we haven't had any funding. And so that really does make a difference. But if we could expand it also so that where we do the volunteer recognition part of it, where we award prizes to people for being great snow removers, snow angels, then we keep that in front of the public's eye, and it becomes something people feel good about doing. So I'd like to see us sort of put that together, because you don't get good snow removal just by having ordinance. We do need the ordinance because there are inevitably a few people who are totally uncooperative, but the majority of people, I think, will. And I think one of our other big issues is rental property. We have such a high percentage of our property is rental, and when I look at the places where it's not removed, it's often rental property.
I meant to look that up. I know they're required to remove it from public areas on their property, but I'm not sure. They aren't required at all to remove any sidewalk.
I don't think so, not unless
Okay.
they're in the district.
That's interesting, because maybe then that's why you'll see like the driveway cleared and not the sidewalk cleared.
Yeah.
I've never lived in a city where I've seen that before. And I've also never lived in a city that doesn't take pride in clearing their sidewalks. Like all of the other cities I've lived in, which are further north, this is the most south I've ever lived, it's a point of pride. You go out and you shovel your sidewalk, you shovel your neighbor's sidewalk, it's this thing we're doing, and you actually see your neighbors because you've all been cooped up inside, and it's
Yeah,
and
I
you're
think
like,
that happens. It just
yeah.
depends on the neighborhood. And you know, I
Yeah.
have a neighbor across the street that'll shovel the whole other side
That's
of
what I do.
the block.
But
Because
I really like the idea of the transit routes. So it's like an emergent, like the same way you would do, you have your emergency routes for the roads, right? These are the ones that get cleared first. This is like there's a whole system for clearing them. I really like the idea of the you live on a transit route, you need to clear this, it says you live on a transit route, you need to clear the sidewalk. Like, it's just, I don't know. That could just be one way to start expanding it, maybe. That's just one idea.
And that mapping's already done, so it would be easy for us to take a look at those major routes with the snow removal campaign. And it's not as many small residential streets as you would think.
the safe routes to school.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like, as I said, our two little snowstorms, somebody has cleared, at least from Washington up to where I live, and probably all the way to the school, and it would be great to find a way to figure out, catch them in the act or something. Because it was just awesome, because normally I'm going by rental properties, and in fact, like the driveway was less clear than the sidewalk. It was like almost on purpose. Who is this person?
Yeah, give them a free coffee card or something. Well, if we wanted to just suggest adding a few streets, I'll start by saying I'd like to see probably North Broadway and North Race up to University, and I think Broadway up to these bus stops even. I see people standing in the street here to wait for a bus.
Washington, there were a lot of people in the street, and Lincoln Avenue is really problematic farther north because there are retaining walls, so there's this much sidewalk, and I have pictures of people jumping into the street and jumping back. It was really frightening. really on the Urbana side and not the university side. The university side was reasonably clear, not have pictures.
So,
But I really, that's really frightening stretch, and it's a lot of real property.
which block?
I would say from Green North to University,
Okay, so North Lincoln.
and in different spots along there, there's a retaining wall, probably more between Springfield and Universities, where you've got those really old narrow spaces that don't need much room for pedestrians. And I don't think city can do anything about expanding that space, because I think that used to be a narrower street, and they've expanded the street very close to the property.
We will have the new crosswalk at Main, right? So that could be justification to at least extend it up to Main. We have the new apartment buildings up here.
All the way up Lincoln, because there are a lot of real property along there, and there's a lot of traffic.
Okay. Other suggestions?
I would say Oregon, Mountain Crossing Vine,
Oregon at Vine.
and actually all the way to Leo School.
There's a bus stop there.
Yeah, I think that's a safe rest.
Oh yeah, there's a, yeah, because there's a crosswalk at Broadway on the Oregon too. So maybe
Is there
once we get a
something,
list of these, we can maybe at another meeting prioritize them a little bit. And
Bill, what is that purple on Nevada? Is that legit, or is that just, where is that?
oh, that's my house.
Oh, oh that's great.
Well, the city clears it for you, Bill?
We,
Well, I didn't mean to make it purple. I just meant to. I was testing out if I could actually add a route, and I could. And it'll remind me to shovel my walk. So.
do you want to share this map with people, and other people can like put? Well, I do mine, and I could make it. Be part of the
Well, we would
encouragement
love to have you
campaign.
sign up as a volunteer snow remover, so we know that that section is being cleared already, because when people are asking to do sections of sidewalks, if, for example, we get volunteers like CU at home, we can say this is an area that really needs it that no one's clearing. So if you're clearing, go sign up. It's
How do
totally
you sign
painless.
up? I'm not going to be able to. I don't have a sidewalk, but how do you sign up?
CU Safe Routes to School Project website, and all you have to do is go and sign up. We send out a little reminder when the city sends out their alert. We email all of our people and say, alert, time to clear your sidewalk.
Yeah, that's really cool. We can promote it.
Yeah, and I
Somehow.
should say that as part of this, that we now have a video. I was going to do it under announcements, but the staff at the city of Champaign started working on this, gosh, it's been over a year ago. And Jeff's daughters are totally adorable in the video. And then our staff here at UPTV finished it off. It is now posted, and it is a really cute PSA encouraging people to clear their sidewalks. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at, I think, is it on the city's website now? I wasn't actually sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Lily was communicating about that, and it's running on UPTV. It's going to run on Champaign Public TV, and of course, it is on the Safe Routes to School website. And so, spreading that far and wide is helpful too. Yeah, I don't know how Jeff did it, but his daughters even color coordinated their parkas with the colors of our signs. So
Yeah, I don't know. So
Is it a 30-second video?
yeah.
Oh, I'm seeing it. I don't know.
Well, it's a little bit longer than 30
It's in a
seconds,
weird
isn't it?
location. Yeah, I don't know if this is it.
so how about
Posted 8 days ago, though.
you each have a paper map too at
Mhm.
your table. Why don't you
Yes.
take that home and bring it back next month with suggestions on places you'd like to see the expansion. And can keep in
But
mind
this shows
of how
existing,
Yeah, this
not,
isn't-
It would be hard to show where you want
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's just the one that was on the city website. Okay, I'll make one and send it out, or do a screenshot or something. I'll look at this and see if there's a way to make this a document. If we make it a document, we can all edit. It'd have to be some kind of Open Meeting Act violation. So, I'll figure out something and send you a map that you can actually mark on. Yeah, and then so we'll have bus routes on there too, or bus stops. Any other particular areas people want to discuss before we go on?
Well, Green Street between Race and Lincoln would be good, especially after the MCOR project is done. And one of the other things I'd like to mention is that I regularly see the ramps blocked. And so some people go out and clear their sidewalks before the snow plowing, and the snow plow comes by and it's totally blocked. And we really need to make an effort to go back and clear the ramps, because people who are in wheelchairs with mobility issues, people who have vision issues are going to have a very hard time navigating a mountain of snow right at the ramp going into the street.
Yeah, that might be something to emphasize in our educational materials. Any other comments?
I do have a comment. When you were talking about on Broadway, going up to University and hopefully going beyond University.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to get that connection across University. Like if you do Lincoln, can it go across? Can it get like at least the first block Broadway at least?
I think that one. I do see people out in the street waiting for buses there, and we have all those businesses here now at Gateway Shops, and this is there's several bus stops. I think they go. There's a couple of different color buses there. Maybe. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't say.
Just thinking about the connectivity.
There's a couple
of
different routes that go through there, because one of them goes down Park Street, I think, and one of them goes on up Broadway. And then the Park District will have a path along Park Street and they're pretty good about plowing right away. So that Park Street we shouldn't have to worry about, because that'll go clear down to McCullough, right?
Yep.
So that would kind of complete. Well, then we got University. And with the University Avenue improvements, once that's done, and that's supposed to all be done next summer, is that right? Or is it a 2-year thing? So
I think it'll carry over into the next year after that.
Okay. So depending where they start, maybe they'll be done next summer or not. So timeline-wise, of course, it's too late to do anything this year, but I was kind of thinking this would be a good kind of winter to take a look at where we are and be observant of conditions this winter. And then sometime next summer, maybe we could offer some suggestions to the council. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to announcements.
Do I have an announcement?
Well, I do have one announcement. To the driver of a car who tried to run over me on my way here tonight as I was northbound on Anderson at the intersection with Florida. And I was halfway into the intersection when they decided to try and run over me. Luckily, I have disc brakes and I know how to stop fast. But I would encourage motorists to pay more attention, because if I hadn't stopped quickly, they would have been explaining why they had hit me to the police and perhaps dealing with more serious consequences. So at a 4-way stop, if someone's already in the intersection, you are not legally allowed to try and get through the intersection by bullying them into stopping. You are supposed to wait until they're through the intersection. So I just wanted to say, about 5:30, whoever you were that was westbound, that was an illegal maneuver and very dangerous.
Thank you. Leo, did you want to talk about your accident? Or not? You don't have to.
No, well, basically the same thing, but I didn't stop fast enough. And that was Washington and Vine. That was on a low visibility night, so I think the person driving the car didn't see me because it was dark and wet, so there were lights coming from all directions. I had lights on my bike, but they could have easily gotten lost on the reflection on the street.
That's really hard.
Yeah. So the person who hit me was apologetic, and I was very lucky. I was not injured. But yeah, I mean, that's also not the first time that I've had a close call, especially at that intersection. Just there's 2 distinct times of days in the morning, and between 5 and 6 p.m. It's just everybody's trying to get through there really quickly, and I even see cars almost hitting, or people driving cars almost hitting people, other people driving cars. I mean, people just get very impatient, and it's a very busy 4-way stop with those turn lanes too. It's more
There's
complicated
a
than
lot
it
to
looks
look
like.
at, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
And the lighting's not
to
very
go
good
straight, you have to be in the
Mhm.
left
Yeah.
lane.
I'm often afraid just crossing when I'm walking
Oh,
also.
Yeah,
That
do,
intersection.
no, do not, yeah. I don't see pedestrians at all when I'm
Mhm.
driving a car. When I am driving a car, I am purely like looking at the other vehicles, and I am like trying to, I would not have
Mhm.
seen you on I'll be honest. Like,
Mhm.
I've been thinking about the way you described that, and I was like, you don't, because you're just looking for vehicles, and you're just trying to avoid hitting vehicles, and
Mhm.
you always feel like you should be going. Like,
Hmm.
you're like, I should be moving, and like, if you try to like go really slow, people get upset. And I actually bike through that intersection every morning, but it's in the morning, and I'm pretty aggressive about like, I am going now, and you will stop, and I will proceed. But this morning, of course, there was a bus, and because there was a bus stopped and there were cars queuing up behind the bus, what did the cars do? Well, the cars, of course, had to queue up next, had to pass around. And so I, of course, when I scooted by the bus, I saw a car like follow me down Washington, and I was like, oh my Lord, like, just relax. But yeah, there's something weird about that intersection. I truly can't figure out why. Yeah.
Okay, Audrey,
Yeah, I would note that it was not marked as a problem intersection on this map. So that's one that we need to
Okay.
consider. Also, Annie mentioned when she's going in the morning, she doesn't have as much trouble. Well, you're kind of in the middle of the road when you're going to the east, and people are forced to see you because you're out there in the middle. It's a little bit trickier going the other direction where you're way on the right side, and they don't see you till the last minute, which really reemphasizes the idea of safe cycling by making sure you're sharing the road doesn't mean hugging the right side of the road,
Yeah.
that you're way out
Right.
there where people can see you, where they're forced to see you. But I've had many close calls on that same intersection.
yeah, thanks.
Hate crossing that intersection.
It's very scary.
It's terrible, and middle school and high school is right there, so anyone living on the other side of Vine Street.
Sounds like we could almost make an entire agenda item out of that intersection, so we can, but thanks, Leo, and I'm sorry about calling it an accident. I know you got hit. So, yeah. Craig?
So on some good news, we submitted our bicycle-friendly community application, and the league informed us here recently that we were renewed a gold level community. We are still the lone gold medal or gold level in the state of Illinois. I think at a future meeting here, I have the report card, and we can kind of go through that a little bit and kind of compare what we had 4 years ago and what our score is now. But I think we're one of maybe 34 nationwide.
That's right.
I think there's, 4 or 5 platinums, maybe, something like that.
Yeah,
So
not very many.
Not very many.
But we're up there with Aspen, and there were several. I was looking at the other gold cities, and and their reputation is, I think, bigger than ours. I think part of our problem for recognition is that when national organizations look at communities, they lump us into the sort of metro area, and that includes Savoy, in which I think 97% of all the trips are made by car, and so it drags the whole area way down. Whereas if Urbana's looked at alone, we shine in terms of walking and biking rates nationally. and transit too, of course. So I often get annoyed and email organizations and say, why are we not on this list? We actually have more people walking and biking than some of the other communities you have in your top 10 list here, but so far that really hasn't resulted in any help for us.
So congratulations, all of you.
Yeah,
That's really
Absolutely.
great.
Go team. And so are we going to have a public
takes-
announcement when the
takes a
weather's
lot of-
better?
Yeah,
hard
that's what,
work.
I think Kevin and I were talking that, we'd probably wait till the weather's, but it may be something closer to, Bike Month, maybe, we'll
Okay.
see. But, there was a press release sent out, but,
It
we
didn't
do.
get picked up, though.
No, it didn't, and, I think we did, send it out on Twitter too. The
Okay.
league actually sent it out, and it was, what was kind of cool, I saw it and shared it with Kevin and our communication director, that we were one of the few communities that were announced in that little Twitter
Yes,
feed.
we were. We were like in the second paragraph
Yeah.
or sentence.
Yeah,
So we were high up.
nationwide.
Yeah, yeah.
That was kinda cool.
great.
But we should definitely, we got to figure out a way to tout this more than we do, so. So
Yeah, it's just a
if
funny
any,
time of year to do it.
it is,
What if we make our bike to work shirts?
yeah.
No, we can't actually.
And we'll be ordering,
They're Champaign County line.
we'll be ordering new signs
Oh, good.
too.
So we've got silver signs all over.
No, we have gold, because we wore gold.
Right, but I see silver signs posted on poles still.
Oh, they shouldn't be.
They
We
are.
We should be taking those down. So I thought we did.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure.
well,
If you,
maybe
if
I'll
you see
note them
some,
for you and
you,
tell
you, you let me know. But we'll be ordering new signs, and then we'll have a sign that the mayor can
Cool.
hold up and
Thank you.
show, so.
And thank you to staff for getting that in
Yeah,
and
thanks for all
and
the work
getting
on
us renewed. And
Yeah, the true thanks go to Regional Plan Commission, Gabe Lewis particularly. He was instrumental, and then, of course, we had a real small steering committee that we just kind of bounced things off. The application, and maybe that's another thing, I'll just show you that maybe next time too,
I think
it's pretty involved.
I think you sent it. Yeah,
for
we should,
cities, it's
I think we all have
Yeah,
it.
yeah, there's a lot there. And then what's also cool this time, they changed some of their scoring methodology, and they have explained why, in certain things that they've done. So, and they'll cite a certain question,
Yeah.
and then we could look at that, if we have questions too. But it's pretty involved, so we should be
Yeah,
proud.
and we talked before about just going through the application was helpful as far as seeing where we're lagging and what we
Yep.
need to work on and things.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing to me as staff to take away from it is really what they're doing is setting the bar, and they're letting you know what they value. And really, if you think about it, it's a pretty that's a genius way of elevating bicycling throughout America,
absolutely
right?
it's very effective.
We just need something probably better on the pedestrian side, or with the people that walk side.
Right, yeah, I want us to apply when we get the pedestrian plan done to become a walk-friendly community because they have a similar kind of recognition system. It's not as known, I think, but I think that absolutely should do that.
Yeah, so way to go, Urbana. And all you folks too, you're a part of it too, so.
Other announcements? Anyone? No? Yep.
I'm afraid to say this because I'm afraid it's an oversight, but I'm really, really happy that there's bike parking in downtown Urbana on the street. The big blue bike rack hasn't been taken away.
I was wondering about that too, but I wasn't going to say anything.
We used it tonight.
The one in front of Crane Alley and Blackbird, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice
Fantastic. It's really nice having it there. Yeah. And I have talked to business owners who just are like, no one uses it. There's no point. Like, why is it there? So, and I mean, these are people I like and people I know. So it's not, but it's really lovely having it there. I use it all the time. So.
Okay. Future topics. We've already during our meeting added maybe something with Ben Thomas and Vio Ride. Craig offered to do something on bicycle-friendly community and potentially talk about Washington and Vine. I don't know if you want to put that on there. Anything else?
Maybe an update
I can tell you that the university, I mean, the IDOT is in negotiations with property owners for the easements and the right-of-way. I can tell you that. And that they've had a few where there's some stalling going on. So it was pulled from the March letting and moved to the April letting. So they can't go out to bid until they secure everything they need to secure. So they're just trying to work through that process. So that's as I understand. So as soon as that gets cleared, then usually have a 2 to 3 month lead time, and then they'll put the project out to bid. So the way it's tracking right now, it would probably be at best a midsummer start. Then that would carry over into the next calendar year. So, are you wanting anything more than that? No, Craig. That was
You've
fine.
given us the
Okay.
plans,
I think yeah.
so we can review those
Yeah.
on our own. Yeah. Segueing into that, a number of us attended the Crystal Lake Park public input session.
About the one-way, changing their drive to one-way.
And the new
one-way
multi-use
loop
path
with the-
on Park. And I know that they have a lot of interest in improving access across University Avenue. I think they're maybe working even with a U of I planning class of some kind to talk about how to reach out to University Avenue, all those high-rise residential buildings that are over there to the west, as well as they'd really like to see some kind of a concept I hadn't heard of called a view shed from University Avenue. In other words, that people are aware that there's a park there instead of it's just a mystery hidden behind the muffler shop. You know, similar to how I think Urbana
a
should be
planning term.
concerned
Yeah,
about
view shed.
about the shops hidden behind Walgreen, of which there's a number of very nice, new, interesting shops that who would know it because you can't see it. There's no view shed. Yeah.
Another one.
Yep.
So the Cunningham Avenue path is finished, so you might check that out. And then maybe a question to Kara, could you give us a status on the Crystal Lake Park path? Because I understand that was bid.
And if you want to know more about the one-way road study too, that could be something that I talk about next meeting. The path is set to begin construction in the spring.
Yay.
So it'll be 10 feet wide, and it will go all the way from Broadway Avenue to McCullough, and have a couple of benches and accommodate the people that are waiting for the bus there too. And then it swoops a little bit to the north along Broadway, but there's preliminary engineering being done all the way up to the saline, so that we have that for a future grant application in which we complete a full loop using those two spurs and the park road.
Very good. Okay, so might consider the loop path as a future. Okay, of those, does anybody have any, so next month we may have the wayfinding plan, probably RPC might be ready.
I think right now they're finaling out the report, and we're talking February probably, that they would bring it forth to this committee for review, and then I need to talk to planning if it has to go to Plan Commission. I'm not sure. So we have those possible two commissions and then go to council. So we're another month off. So
Okay. Well, maybe for next month, Audrey, would you be willing to do the equity and education, or did you already do all that today? You have more, don't you?
No, I have more.
Okay.
I also have the Vision Zero.
Yeah. Which one of those would you prefer to do, or you want to do both of them?
Either way, we can.
Okay. So we'll plan on you doing one of those in January, and then.
I'll mention that I believe we are, I wish Charlie was still here, but I believe we are able, if anyone needs to send information to the entire commission. Just don't start
Right.
a conversation
Right.
with the entire commission, because that becomes a meeting. But information can be sent by any of us members to the other members. And if we are going to have Vision Zero, I'd be sure
Give
to
us some
send, for
homework.
example, the city of Columbia, Missouri has a very wonderful model resolution ordinance that established them as a Vision Zero city. I'd want to send that out for everyone to peruse at their convenience.
Okay. Okay, well, we have several ideas there. We can talk about it. Yeah. We'll come up with 2 or 3 things for next time. And then I'll send out some kind of, I'll send out a link to that interactive map if you want to look at closer at the sidewalks we already have covered by the ordinance, and then I'll send out a PDF or something that you can draw on, and if you can bring that back next month with suggestions, then we can put that on a future agenda to talk some more about that. Okay, anything
Bill?
else? Yeah.
I was going to say, in regards to the snow shoveling agenda item concept, would it be easiest if we all did it as a working group? Like we all sat there and looked at a map together and talked about it, or is it better if people individually highlight areas and then?
I think you could do it either way. Just don't get more than 3 of you together.
I meant actually doing it in a meeting together while we're all.
That would probably. I mean, I was thinking a first step might be kind of get everybody's individual, and then we could put something together to dig into as a group. Yeah. Let's try that. But if you want to work with 1 or 2 other people when you're doing your individual map, and you can do that too. I guess it'll score your routes a little higher if you get 3 people all saying the same thing. But okay. Is there anything else? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.